some of the things we were talking about today, it was data, which is a really interesting topic. I focus on digital distribution and helping market participants on how they trade with one another, both in marketplaces as well as internal systems, policy administration, sending information to and from. And none of that's really possible unless we think about data at the very onset and what do we actually want out of it. So what we were talking about today was the maturity internally for most different market participants and how they treat data. What are some of the insights or objectives, business outcomes that they want to achieve out of that? And that's really important before we start hooking up internal in-house systems with the weird and wonderful world of marketplace platforms and digital distribution, because there's all sorts of different ways of describing things, and we're going to get this sort of information overload that, if not well thought out at the onset, actually creates future technical problems on how we then articulate it. So that was a bit of what we were talking about today. Really, really interesting question and topical. Some of the things, not necessarily just speaking with people one-to-one, but even in the session we just did, understanding what's going on in the market. One of the neat things, which I think was surprising to hear, is we had a group full, actually I think it was a majority of underwriting and carriers, but one of the trends that was really spoken about was that we want to create efficiency and risk clarity upstream in the process. And I was surprised to hear that. I've been thinking that as a key component of our digital distribution strategy and how we're helping customers. But whether it's on the underwriting side or the broking side, it's about getting information on the screens of those placement specialists or those underwriters to make better individual risk clarity-based decisions, or on the frame of how a risk may fit in a portfolio for a particular broker or an underwriting strategy. And I was surprised to hear that that's what the group was focused on, because if we think about what's going on in the market, a lot of us are focused on downstream efficiency realization, and that's not to diminish the importance of it. I think it's really important, but it was a bit of a surprise to hear that everybody's focusing on more upstream, and that equally marries up with some of the things we're doing at Verisk for customers. You're right, it is an exciting time at Verisk. What's coming up in 23, a lot of what I'm focused in and what I've been helping our business pull together is what's our digital distribution offering. And it's a very complicated category, but what are we focusing on? It's marketplace assets, it's connection services, and elective business services. And part of that digital distribution strategy is us taking relevant pain points, sometimes working with the Sequel 6, which is a group of partner markets or various different markets who have come together to solve those pain points and work those problems. So it's ourselves investing to actually show tangible outcomes that actually resonate with customers. And I think sometimes when we're talking about digital distribution or transformation, we just kind of get lost in a lot of technical jargon. And so in these instances, it's actually relevant market pain points where if I showed it on a screen, it doesn't matter where you are in the market, you must be a practitioner, you would understand it, and it speaks in that language. So that's what we're focusing on a bit there. And when I talk about connection services, it actually has to do with what we talked a little bit about earlier, but the market is very interested in figuring out how to get data in the place where they need it at the time they need it. And so ourselves working with partners and others, we want to solve through that problem so we can begin to offer that. We're also really well placed with things like white space, and we want to really broaden the adoption inside of this market, where I see that as, it's an interesting term, but it's kind of the subtle capture of data behind the scenes. The more and more we can focus on those digital distribution pathways, I see that as reducing the overall pain in the market. And when we're capturing it unbeknownst to ourselves through that placement process, taking it and then putting it in those other adjacent systems is really important. So a key thing for us is figuring out how to solve that in a scalable, repeatable, and an economical way.